So today, we're going to be talking about cities. Because we're living in cities all over the world. In Poland, 2 out of 3 people live in cities, and very soon, 8 out of 10 will be living in cities. Cities, some 10,000 people, but at the end of the day, whether the city is 10,000 or 10 million, we're going to have similar issues. But we'll have different solutions, different scale. If we got 10 million people, we need a train for mobility. If we got 10,000, we need a few buses. And I want to speak tonight about sustainable mobility, about urban parks, about public spaces, not only parks, but sidewalks and streets and plazas and squares. And when I'm talking about sustainable mobility, I'm talking about walking, I'm talking about riding bicycles, using public transit, new uses of cars. By the way, walking and cycling is not a joke. Walking and cycling is the only individual mode of mobility for most people. Walking and cycling is the only individual mode of mobility for all children and youth. You might be the son or the daughter of the wealthiest person in Poland. If you're under 16, your only individual mode of mobility is to walk or to bike. So walking and cycling, safe and enjoyable, should be like a human right, unless you think that only the people that have the money and the age and the desire to drive a car have a right to individual mobility. That's why we're also talking about democracy and human rights and equality and sustainability, because everything is really linked to everything. And public spaces, public belongs to all of us. I have been lucky to have been working in different places of Poland, even running a half marathon in Poznan. And it's a country with so many wonderful sites. Here, they were having the statues, and someone said, oh, it might be cold, so she lent her scarf. And some kids saw that they were pushing, so they wanted to help. Public spaces are kind of magical. People of all ages, all conditions. It's something that it's really, really great. How everybody belongs. The public spaces are fantastic equalizer. In Poland and everywhere. It might be Copenhagen, it might be parks in the middle of Atlanta like Piedmont Park, or elevated like Highland in New York, or along the rivers in the Mississippi. Parks. You know, last World Football Cup, I was working in Chicago, and where did I go see games? In the parks, and that's what they were doing in South Korea, and in Bogota, and in Germany. But it's not just about sports, the umbrella revolution. Where do people go? To the parks and public places. Occupy Wall Street, Je suis Charlie. Who's rich, who's poor? No one knows. Everybody's the same. This is Rio. 2 million people in Rio. It wasn't during the World Cup. It was 3 months before. The Pope went there and had a mass for 2 million people. Amazing. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be a small stair. You build a small stair, and it transforms a neighborhood. Imagine from the point of view of citizen engagement, you get each family 130 steps. Each family paints 1 step and put their initials. That's why sometimes people say, what's a good city? And I say, well, a good city is a good city where I want to sleep at home, but I want to live outside. I want to live outside. So tonight, at Open Eyes Economic Summit, I want to talk about cities and communities, vibrant cities and healthy communities. I want to make emphasis on public health and equity. To put things into context, I want to talk a little bit about Bogota and 880 cities, and then I'm going to end with 5 messages to Open Eyes, the Economic Summit. First, about Bogota. Obviously, Bogota is not the ideal city, far from the ideal city. However, I was commissioner. Now I live in Canada, in Toronto, but I was commissioner in Bogota, and I learned that changing cities is not about the money. Also, now I advise many cities, but before I was doing. For example, in the first term, we built over 200 parks. All over the city, we built small, medium, large. Here, the Pope came 3 popes ago, gave a mass for 1 million people, and then he left, and then nothing happened. Nothing happened for almost 27 years. Why nothing happened? Because change is hard. Change is hard in Krakow, change is hard in Warsaw, change is hard in Bogota, in New York, everywhere. Because you try to change here in Warsaw, in Krakow, and the cave people show up. who are the cave. They are the citizens against virtually everything. But we need to find solutions to the problems. We cannot take no for an answer. We gotta find the little crack through the window and run through it. We cannot accept no for an answer, and it's not just about having 20 excuses. So it was like this for 27 more years, and we turned it into the nicest park for passive, for active, for contemplative recreation. Because it's not just about doing football fields, it's about doing activities that people can enjoy at their own pace and at their own time. The water here, you got a magnificent river in Krakow. So it's great, it's about people, it's the uses. And I'm gonna be talking a little bit more about parks and why they work. We also did the ciclovia. What is the ciclovia? In North America, we call it open streets. I found a small program with a few kilometers and a few thousand people, and we turned it into the world's largest pop-up park. Sunday mornings, we pop it up, and people come out to walk, to bike, to skate, to run, to be with other people. All of these are the different income levels, and we wanted to interconnect 121 kilometers. The wealthiest neighborhoods and the poorest neighborhoods, all of the parks, so that people can also get to those parks. How do you do it? It's simple. You open streets to people, you close them to cars, and magic happens. Imagine ciclovia, open streets here in Krakow. It would be great. People love to be with other people, but not everybody wants to walk or bike or skate. So along the route, we do aerobics or Tai Chi or Cha-Cha-Cha, anything around physical activity where everybody can participate. Who comes? All you need is 2 feet and a heartbeat, and you are going to be there. Young, old, rich, poor, fat, skinny, everybody. We get 1.7 million every Sunday and holiday, 66 days. The nice thing is that it changes minds. It opened the minds that the streets are public. They belong to everybody, are public space, and they can have different uses according to the time of the day of the week of the year. And it has turned like a positive virus. It's gone all over. LA, Los Angeles, the city of angels and cars is doing it, and Portland. And I've seen cities of 10,000 or 50,000. I've seen other cities like New York with 8 million people. Very, very, Paris. This is about social integration. Everybody, regardless the age, the ethnicity, the religion, everybody's mixing, and we meet each other as equals. That's very powerful. The owners and the CEOs of the largest corporations and their minimum wage workers with their spouses and children meet as equals. But now I run 2 organizations, World Urban Parks and 880 Cities. And this is the tweet if you wanna make any comments. And I've been lucky to have worked in over 250 different cities. World Urban Parks. And we hope that Krakow becomes a member. Basically, we think that everybody should have quality urban parks within walking distance. And we have academies and certifications, and we got committees where some people can be members as a city, others an individual. Children, play and nature, older adults and parks, healthy cities, and so on. If you want more information, that's the website. But everywhere I go, people say, Gil, what's 880 Cities? What is the 880 Cities? Well, 880 Cities is not about parks or streets or walking or cycling. Those are the means, not the end. The end is how can we help create successful parks, successful cities, vibrant. The other day I was in Warsaw, and I went to the place where I was going to speak the next day, and I see all of these people dancing, and I said, oh, my God, how am I going to compete? And then I see the DJ Vika. We are living longer. She's an entrepreneur. She goes from city to city around Poland, organizing activities. So it's vibrant cities and healthy communities where everybody is going to live happier. And when I'm in any of these cities, people say, oh, Gil, is this intersection safe? Can my children walk to school? Can my grandparents go on a bike to get eggs or milk? Can the children walk to the park or take public transit? You don't have to be an engineer. 3 simple steps. We call it the 880 rule of common sense. Unfortunately, common sense seems to be the least common of the senses. All of you, step number 1, think of a child around 8 years old, someone that you love, your son, your daughter, your grandchild, anybody around 8. Once you have that 8-year-old, think of an 80-year-old that you love, your parents, your grandparents, uncles, cousins. And then when you have the 80-year-old in mind, the 8 and the 80, the child and the older adult, go to step number 3. Would you send them across that intersection? Would you send them walking to the park or to take public transit? Would you send them on a bicycle to get eggs or milk? Would they feel safe? If you would, it's because he's safe enough. If you would not, it's because he's not. And we gotta do it better. What if everything that we did in Krakow, everything, the sidewalk, the crosswalk, the pavement, the park, the school, the theater, the office, everything had to be great for an 8 and an 80. It's not 8 to 80, it's 8 and 80 as an indicator species. Because if it's good for the good 8 and it's good for the 80, it's going to be good for everybody. From 0 to over 100, we need to stop building cities as if everybody was 30-year-old and athletic and build great cities for all. That is the concept of 880 cities. Simple but powerful. But we gotta move fast. There is an urgency. And like Einstein said, we cannot solve the problems by using the same kind of thinking that we used when we created them. So I wanna take you through 5 messages. First one, I want everybody in this theater to be a guardian angel. I want every one of you to be a guardian angel of the gentle majority. The gentle majority are the children, the older adults, the poor. And when I say gentle, it's because they are not very loud, they are not screaming. When there's public meeting, the children are sleeping or doing homework. The poor people are doing 2 and 3 jobs, they are not there. Actually, when we evaluate any city, anywhere, we should evaluate cities by how well we treat the most vulnerable people. The children, the older adults, and the poor. Let me give you an example of each one. The children. What if in Krakow we had playability everywhere? A fun city, exciting, playable. We go to the sidewalk and there is a swing, and we're waiting for the bus and there's a little parklet. It's not about money. A lot of the playability can be done with very little money. It's more an issue of attitude, an issue about doing. Don't even ask him permission, get to do it. And people say, oh, nice, because it's fun and game. No, it's fun and games, but it's more than that. It's how children learn. Playing is how children learn. They develop their muscle strength, their cognitive thinking, the capacity to learn languages, to socialize, to develop friendships. Playing, that's how children develop a sense of belonging to the neighborhood, the city, their country, the world. So we gotta have playability everywhere. What if in Krakow and everywhere we should have a goal that every child should have a park or a play area within a 10-minute walk, within 500 meters. Let's start doing parks everywhere. Every child, 10-minute walk, they should have a park or a play area. And some of you might say, what if there is not a park? Let's think what belongs to all of us. New York did this. By the way, these things, I think these kids are gonna be the future engineers. It's not about money. New York did a map. They thought every kid had a park within walking distance. No, many did not. So they said, okay, what belongs to all of us? The schools, the libraries, City Hall, the streets, the sidewalks. So they went to the schools and they said, this is horrible. This pavement is what you call a playground? We'll do a real playground if and only if you make it a school park that after 4 p.m., Saturdays, Sundays, on vacation, you open it to the community. And they did these beautiful parks with lots of trees and green roofs and so on with trust for public land. But they didn't do one. Why the green is so important? Because when the children play in green areas, they reduce the attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. And look how many they did, not 1 or 2. They have done over 200, transforming this into this. Even with gardens and communities, this park can absorb up to 55,000 gallons of water. And if you don't have a school, let's take over a street and make it a play street. But every kid in Krakow, every kid everywhere should have a park or a play area within a 10-minute walk. So how are we gonna do? The other group, older adults. You know, it's so exciting. We're living longer, much, much, much longer. It's really nice. You know, in the history of humanity, the people that have ever lived to 65, half are alive today, half. It's exciting, and the population over 65 are going to double. The population over 80 are going to quadruple, and people are happy and enjoying life, and they're not talking about retirement. They're talking about retirement. You know, actually, I think we should create a movement, the 60 plus alive, because people are alive. People retire, and we cross them out as if they had died, except that they got 20, 30, 40 years left. The biggest waste in the world are the older adults that we don't incorporate them into society. They could be teaching languages to the children, to the immigrants. They could be tutoring kids in the schools, organizing Tai Chi, knitting, walking groups in the parks. It could be fantastic assets to the community. Our universities should have 20, 30% of the courses for older adults. People want to learn about music and history and science and all kinds of activities. You know, we're getting older. The population, we're living longer. In Poland, 50 years ago, the mean, half of the people were younger than 25, half were older than 25. Now it's 38. And soon it's going to be 50. By 2050, half of the people in Poland are going to be younger than 50, half are going to be older than 50. So what kind of city are we going to build? How friendly the sidewalks, magnificent wide sidewalks for people to walk. You know, if we had been born in Poland 200 years ago, our life expectancy was 36. So many of us will be dead by now. All of these are the countries in the world, and this is the life expectancy. 200 years ago, we didn't have any country with a life expectancy above 45. Today, we don't have any country with life expectancy below 45. It's amazing. In 200,000 years, we went to 36. In only 200, we have doubled that. It's clear that we have learned how to survive. But when we got all of these issues, climate change and public health crisis and congestion, it's clear that we need to learn how to live. An Open Eyes Economic Summit is about that. It's about learning how to live. What are the values? What's important in our lives? What's going to make us happy? And the built environment has a lot to do with that, especially in the older adults. And I said children, older adults, and also the poor. The poor is something critical. I'm talking about equity. I'm not talking about equality. The other day I saw a cartoon that was really good because it explained this is equality. No, some people are so far behind that they need 2 and 3 boxes. Others don't need any box. So it's not the same, equality and equity. And someone went further and a few days ago brought out another cartoon, said this is equality, this is equity, this is reality. Someone is way up and someone is way down. But how to solve this? Maybe we need to think outside the box. Maybe it's not about boxes going up and down, but maybe we gotta take down the fence. We need to think, open eyes. It's about looking at the world, different values, different behaviors, and we have not done very well from the point of view of equity. And it's not just the low-income countries. These are the 35 wealthiest countries in the world. This is the share of children living in poverty. The US, 1 out of 5. Poland, 1 out of 8. But don't think you are good just because you are better than the States. The States is almost the worst. South Korea is 1 out of 14. Denmark is 1 out of 37. What does Denmark have that Poland doesn't have? Be ambitious. I mean, Krakow, in everything you do, compare with the best. If you want to compare Krakow with cities that are worst, in 5 minutes, you can do a list of 1,000 cities. But if you compare with cities that are worst, eventually you're going to look like those. No, see which cities, similar size and income, which have the best mobility, the best quality of air, the best levels of happiness, the best parks and public spaces. And from the point of view of mobility and equity, we're spending 1 out of 4 euros, 25% of the income if we use the car as a mode of mobility. 25%. And our houses, we have huge garage and driveways, 20% of the houses for the car. We would be spending only 5%. If we walked or bike or took public transit, there is nothing that government can do that would improve the economic situation of people more than allowing to downsize from 2 cars to 1 or from 1 to 0. And that would be great for the economy because instead of spending $9,000 per year on a car, most of it is depreciation. You buy the car for X, you sell it 3 years later for a third. That money, if you have those 9,000 this year in your pocket and next and next and next, you're going to go to the restaurant. You're going to improve your house. The money is going to stay in the local economy instead of going for cars built in China. Second message, we got a magnificent opportunity, but also a great responsibility. You know, cities. Today, we got about 3.5 billion people living in cities. 3.5 billion. By 2050, 2060, we're going to have over 7 billion. 7 billion. Yesterday, I was doing a talk at the Krakow Polytechnic University, and those students, in the lifetime of those students, we're going to double. We're going to increase by 3.7 billion. The houses, the cities where half of the humanity are going to live in 40 years have not been built. So how are they going to be done? What a great opportunity to do it right. Let's hope we don't do it as we have done in the last 40, which has been a huge failure. It can be very nice and civilized. So some people might say it's a challenge. I think more than a challenge, it's a fantastic opportunity. But of course, we gotta change. And change is hard. That's why most cities don't change, because it's a lot easier to do more of the same. My friend, young girl, said, Copenhagen, the car was taking over in the 50s, 60s, 70s, where they were gonna create the first pedestrian street. People said, what, a street for people walking? They said, oh, we have too many cars. And the weather is horrible. It's cold in the winter, it's hot in the summer, it rains all year. But the number one reason, they said, oh, pedestrian, that's not part of our culture. Pedestrian street, that's for the Italians. Because the Italians are loud and noisy and they like to be on the street. But we are Danish and we are cold and quiet. Let me tell you, the Danish now are more Italian than the Italians. They love their pedestrian streets. In the middle of the rain, they turn these parking lots into people places, more than 18 of those parking lots. So when you're going to change in Krakow, 3 recommendations. First, change is not unanimous. If you want change to be unanimous, you have to water it down that it's not going to be change any longer. Listen to people, but it's not unanimous. Second, any discussion in the city, the general interest must prevail over the particular. The general interest must prevail over the... And third, when you say no to something, you're also saying yes to something else. So when you say no to get the cars out of the sidewalks, when you are saying no to parks, you are saying yes to more obesity, yes to more bad quality of air, yes to more pollution. 3, let's have great parks, great city parks. Sometimes people say, Gil, should we be doing small parks or large ones? Unfortunately, you got to do both because they satisfy different needs. The small neighborhood park, that's where we develop community. That's where we meet our friends. We develop a sense of belonging. But we cannot play football there, so we got to have the medium-sized park. And we're not going to be able to go canoeing, so we need the large size. We need a city-wide park system where we have small, medium, large. We have active, we have passive, we have contemplative. It's a nice mix. What makes a park great? One, management. The parks need to be managed so that there are all kinds of activities, multi-generational, grandparents and grandchildren doing bread. Management, people tend to think that it's synonymous of maintenance. No, it's very different. Maintenance is only 20% of management. Picking up the garbage and cutting the grass. The rest of management is how to engage the community, how to do activities on the weekdays, on the weekends, in the summer and in the winter. It's those uses and those activities. All of a sudden, people are walking and running and playing chess and having lunch and chatting and sleeping. Get volunteers, but give them the tools. You are going to do changes as the citizens, before, during, after. Engage the community. Have resources, human, financial. We got to have safety, but not like in London, England, they put a sign, beware of the thieves. That's like an invitation to the thieves of the city. No, the parks, you need a lot of police if the public spaces are empty. You don't need police when they are well used. So let's get people in the parks. We got to have equitable access throughout the city. We got a good fit with the city so that not all parks are the same, so that they are very different. And we got to have good activities in the winter, and we got to have good activities in the summer. Some people like to get married in the summer, others like to get married in the winter. So a good city, another definition is like a good park. Integrated with nature and extremely safe, especially for children, for older adults. 4, sustainable mobility, walking. There is nothing as important in a city as walking. Who came walking today? Raise your hand if you came walking. And everybody else, because I didn't see any cars. I didn't see any buses down here. Every trip begins and ends by walking. We walk to the car. We walk to transit. We walk to the bicycle. We walk to places. Every trip begins walking. Everybody's pedestrian. And I had said earlier that walking was no frivolity. Walking and cycling, this is what Krakow could easily look like. So nice. And some people might say, oh, but Gil, didn't you see 2 days ago it was raining? It doesn't matter if it's raining. It doesn't matter if it's cold or snowy. If you have good infrastructure, you know, there is no such thing as bad weather. It's bad clothing. So let's have, you know, that's how we were created, pedestrians. Just like the birds, they fly, or the fish swim, and the deer run. People, we walk. But we gotta make it safe. Yesterday, people driving cars yesterday killed 741 people walking. And another 741 today. That's more than one person every 2 minutes. That's not civilized. They're not accidents. Accidents is when they couldn't be avoided. They can be avoided. They're incidents. We got to have Krakow and every city working like Sweden in Vision Zero. No one should be killed in the streets, walking, cycling, in cars, in transit, no one. If we're going to improve walkability, pedestrians need to be a priority. But they are not a priority when this is how we do sidewalks. Or when we allow the cars to go on the sidewalk. This is absolutely horrible. The sidewalks are the symbol of democracy. That's where we meet each other as equals. We should not have anyone. We should not be doing streets without sidewalks. We are telling these people every day, you are a second-class citizen. And you have seen in Krakow, unfortunately, what a beautiful city, but we see a lot of this. These cars should be taken off the sidewalk immediately. There is nothing as important in Krakow to improve the public spaces for everyone, to create a city for people, than returning the sidewalk to people walking, people of all ages. Sometimes I was walking on one of these sidewalks and even I ran into this park. What kind of park? You give more space to the cars than to a small park for children. This is like a jail. So we got to improve walkability. We got to reduce the speed where people live. All the residential neighborhoods got to be 30 kilometers or less. Because if you get hit by a car at 30 kilometers, 5% probability of being killed. At 50, it's going to be over 80%. This is not a technical issue. If we have a small island like this one, we eliminate more than half of the incidents. Why are we still doing crosswalk with our island? This is not a technical. We know we're going to save. The children are walking, not all crossing one light. They stop and they wait and they can cross. So we know how to make cities safe by having nice sidewalks for people. This is about sustainable mobility. It's also about riding bicycles and using transit and new uses of cars. And they got to be better. I'm not saying that this is the end of the car industry, but the way we use cars is changing very, very rapidly. In the US, the young people 16 through 24, in the last 4 years, purchased fewer cars than in the last 40. Got fewer driver's license than in the last 40. The car is no longer a status symbol. It's more of a status symbol not to have a car. It's more of a status symbol to pay higher rent and live in a walkable neighborhood. Or to get a backpack and come to Europe in the summer. And also, we got to have new uses of cars. The older adults are terrified of losing their driver's license. Almost as much as when they are told that they have cancer. It's not because they love cars. It's because they love mobility. People want to age in place, visit the same family, they go shop in the same stores. And people say, oh, driverless cars. Well, if we don't change our behavior, if we don't change how we live, this is how cities look like without cars, and this is how they're going to look like without cars. Actually, we might have even many more cars. And also, bicycle could play an important role. In a city like Krakow, it could be wonderful. Look, Copenhagen, a city wealthy, with good education, people bike. 41 of the trips, 41 out of 100 trips are done on bicycles, and they want to go to 50%, and you don't even need shirts or special shoes to bike, and they are improving great public bikes and widening the bikeways and building nice bridges and infrastructure where all the traffic lights are the speed of the bicycle, and walking, cycling, and transit being like best friends. And if we're going to improve bikeability, it's not about putting signs on the streets or putting bicycle parking or lockers or maps or any of this. It's not even about public bikes. Those are kind of like the saddle before the horse. There are only two things that get more cyclists. One, lower the speed in the neighborhoods. And two, we gotta need a grid of protected bikeways. So everything I said about 30K for walking is the same for cycling. And we need a network. We need a network of AAA bikeways. What's AAA? All ages and all abilities. And then people are gonna bike. And this is gonna be great. And if you don't have the money or the political decision to make them permanent, like this one in France, don't just paint a line, enhance the painted line with some plastic bollards. It's gonna be a huge difference. We need a citywide network. Just like we have a citywide power grid or a citywide water grid, we need a citywide bicycle grid. And it's gonna be good for everybody. And if we're gonna improve public transit, one of my brothers is mayor of Bogota. He says that the civilized city is not the one where the poor have cars. It's the one where the rich use public transit. You know, the other day I was working in Malmo, and the mayor of Malmo said, Gil, since people don't like buses, what did he do with the buses? He put a nose on the bus, he covered the wheels, and now they look like trains. So when I was working in Krakow, I said, maybe we should put a nose and cover the wheels on these buses. And I'm really impressed how all over Poland you are investing in public transit, and that's really good because that is really the only way to move people sustainable, both financially, but also environmentally. It's just simple mobility math. Are we gonna have one of this or 140 of this? Are we gonna have one of those trains or 145 of the others? Are we gonna have people walking, cycling, transit? And last, everyone learns from everyone. The time is up. I'm gonna take 3 minutes. I'm out in 3 minutes. I'm gonna show you some examples because I know you're gonna say that here in Krakow you are different and you got nothing in common with Copenhagen or this. Yeah, I know, you are unique. Always remember that in Krakow you are absolutely unique, just like everybody else. This is not like on the computer that we copy and paste. But yes, it's about adapting and improving. For example, Ann Fenton, she's a physical education teacher in an elementary school. She saw that each year fewer and fewer kids were walking to school. She said, why don't you walk to school? Because they were afraid of the cars. So when they went on vacation, they came back, and Ann was dressed up as a pylon. She closed the parking lot. And the kids started to walk at minus 24 degrees and bike. We need hundreds of Ann Fentons because part of it is infrastructure, but part of it is programs, is software and hardware. Barcelona is already a good city for walking. And they said, we're going to increase walking. Not 5%, not 10%, 66%. What they're doing is they're going to create, they got these grids that is walking, cycling, cars. Now they're going to say, no, this one mix everybody. This one walking only, walking only. That mix 66%. So they're already good. Imagine, when my brother was mayor the first time, this is what the Japanese Cooperation Agency were suggesting. It was horrible. Look at these cars they used to park in all of the sidewalks. It had to decide, are they sidewalks for cars or for people? It was a huge fight. The retail, the merchants started getting signatures to impeach the mayor. Now that they got beautiful sidewalks, they love it. But it was a huge fight to be able to get them out. The sidewalk is not where people fit. In 3 meters, people fit. In 6 meters, you make friends. In 12 meters, you can have a party. Let's have big sidewalks where you can have parties. And I'm hopeful when I see roads for cars being turned into parks for people. I'm going from hopeless to hopeful when I see that there was a river going through here, and 40 years ago they did a road, and now they took out that road and they brought out the river again. When in Copenhagen they used to have 6 lanes, they took out the 4 lanes in the middle and they created a park of 2 kilometers long. How beautiful. When in Seoul, South Korea, they used to have only 5 lanes, got full, so they did 5 elevated, it got full, they wanted a 3rd floor. And the mayor said, 13 kilometers to the middle of Seoul. He tore down the 2nd, he tore down the 1st, he brought out the river, only public transit, and walking and cycling. And that is Seoul, South Korea. This is Madrid, Spain, from cars to parks. This is Paris. I hope that next time that I go to Krakow, all of this will turn into this. Fantastic, with chairs, with benches, with people, with trees. Look at this nice street. But look what happens if you put some trees and it's totally transformed. Beautiful. Nature, we gotta have nature everywhere, at home, on the streets, on the parks, interwoven. How do we want to live? So I wanna live by telling you, let's think outside the box. These are not technical issues, these are not financial, this is political with a big P. Everybody needs to participate. Open Eyes Economic Summit, all of you, when they talk about the trees on the streets or the sidewalk or the schools, you gotta be at the table. Because if you're not at the table, you're gonna be on the menu. You don't want to be on the menu. When you say, oh, what happened with that park? And now there's a building. Did you go to the meetings? Did you send emails? Did you participate in elections? So build alliances, broad alliances with elected officials at the city, at the national level, with public sector, not just planning, but transportation and public health and education. And activists, citizens, business people, activists, media. How to get all three? It's like a three-legged stool. What is the glue? The glue is to develop a sense of urgency in Krakow and to have a shared vision of the city that you want. And once you have the urgency and the vision, then you can move from talking to doing. And some of you might say, Gil, but we're already doing. Yes, you're doing, but you got to do more and you got to do it faster. Because this is about really creating a vibrant Krakow with healthy communities where all people are going to be happier. So Krakow, do it now. Thank you.